Regardless, resident status abroad, living outside the shores of one's homeland can really be challenging and sometimes very difficult. Let's be sincere, to keep pace with happenings from the host country abroad can really be difficult. Here on Dialogue in Diaspora, we give you every information, every news, every current issue you need to know on happenings outside the UK. Dialogue in Diaspora is your link between the world and the United Kingdom. It's your window to African development. Here, live on Bentv.
Thank you for joining us on the program today. This is Voice coming to you from Bentv. My name is Tunde Alabi. It's a pleasure to have you join us on the show today. Today, we'll be taking a look at family law. Of course, for those of us, my viewers that have been following this program, and this is a program where we take a look at legal matters from immigration to specialist legal issues such as employment law, or even we'll take a look at even property law in this part of the world as they affect you. And if you do have any questions as to our previous programs, you're free to ask or send us an email or text message or phone call on the number you see on the screen. As usual, our guest in the studio today, he is a senior partner at Obaseki Solicitors. Talking about Jennifer Obaseki here in the studio. Jennifer, thank you for joining us on the show today.
My pleasure.
All right, today on the show, we'll be taking a look at family law. We'll break this whole thing down. There are different areas of family law, but in the course of this program, Jennifer will be taking us through how some of these areas do affect you and what you need to do when you are affected. Jennifer, family law and the issue of public law as they affect family law decisions. Take us through this area of law.
Well, when we talk about family law, we really think about children, relationships, and one of the things I always say to couples that come in, even when they're dealing with other areas of law, you have to realize that when a family has an impact of stress, whether it's due to finance, whether it's due to immigration, it creates a bit of tension or even friction sometimes in the home. And even with the rising cost of immigration fees, at times, because of that need to put in your application, you may have to take away from school fees, dinner money, shopping money, rent money. So there's a lot of issues that affect families, and more that affect migrant families, that can create pressure on relationships. So the prevalence of family law within migrant communities, whether it be relationship breakdown, whether it be social service intervention, whether it be contact between kids because parents are split up due to pressures, is high. So the one thing we always warn couples when coming into our office, especially for immigration problems, is until the papers are settled, there can be at times unsettlement in the family, but do not let the pressure affect your relationship. But when we talk about family law, we can think about public law in relation to children. That is when there's social service intervention. That can also be where there's police intervention. And then there's also private family law, when you're thinking about divorce, contact applications between separated parents. So it's very diverse. And there's also things like ancillary relief, which is the financial element after separation, after divorce, how the finances that were acquired during the course of the marriage and for supporting children is split. But one of the main areas that affects families is public law. So we can talk about public law, children, and private law when it comes down to relationship breakdown. And one of the things that was deeply concerning to me is over Christmas, there was a video that was circulating on WhatsApp from the community where 7 police officers went into a family's home, and it was an African family or a family of African origin, to remove a child that had run away from foster care to go back to his parents. And the parents recorded the fact that 7 police officers had come into the home to take the child out. So there was a lot of talk on social media as to why that level of force was used in such a situation, because it was very traumatic. It was very, very traumatic. And in all fairness, as a legal practitioner, I felt it could have been dealt with in a different way. each case is different and it's difficult to judge, especially something where you're just getting a snippet on social media. But the level of force used was quite excessive. That child would be traumatized. The parents would be traumatized. And when I was talking about that, even one of the responses on social media was even the police officers would be traumatized, dragging a 10-year-old child, 7 people, out of a house. Another video that circulated on social media was of a Nigerian gentleman who outlined that he was having such issues with Leeds in relation to his children, false allegations of harm, complaints to the police that were not being taken up, legal cases that he had started trying to represent himself. In these 2 cases, what I felt is that people in the community did not have enough knowledge when it comes down to family law. First of all, when an allegation is made by a social worker or by an interested person, a teacher, or even your child, and the local authority give you a request for an interview, ask you to sign a consent form, the one thing you must do before you sign anything is take legal advice. Now, the problem with many people is they don't realize that when it comes down to public law, you should automatically get legal aid once there is the intention to bring a case against you. The local authority may first of all ask that you come for a meeting, may set up an investigation, may then at the end of the investigation instigate proceedings or put your child on a child in need plan or a care plan. But the fact is, during that process, you are entitled to consult a solicitor. During the meetings, a solicitor is even allowed to accompany you, but not talking the meeting, because at those meetings they bring the teachers, those involved with your medical care, to sit down and discuss the risks they perceive or the allegations they see around the child. At times there's a need for emergency steps. For example, an allegation of serious harm. Child says, "Mummy's choked me," or "Daddy spanked me." Then the threshold that has to be met is this child at risk of harm. The harm doesn't need to have been carried out, but the local authority can actually outline that, look, we feel that your child is at risk of serious harm or at risk of harm. Therefore, we're not sure, we want to investigate. Sign this consent. That means that you're cooperating, so we're going to remove the child with your consent. The problem is, at times like that, parents are under such pressure. They want to be seen to cooperate. Sometimes social workers don't give the correct advice in that tense period. The correct advice is you are entitled to legal advice before signing. There should be a defined period of separation or for the investigation. What we have found from experience is because of that lack of defined time, parents sign under pressure or feel forced to sign under pressure. Social workers saying, the sooner you sign it, the sooner you see your child. Not necessarily true. It's not necessarily true. So you've got to be seen to be cooperative at that time, but also have reasonable answers to the questions. For example, how long? How long is your investigation going to be? Obviously, they may not be able to give you a defined period, but you might want to even annotate that section 20 to say, I'm signing this subject to legal advice and it should remain in place for 14 days, 7 days. So at least you put the caveat as to what defined period you're giving consent for. Not that you're giving consent for your child to go indefinitely. The other thing is the social services are actually supposed to give you lists of solicitors who can assist you. What we have noted is many local authorities don't put ethnic solicitors on the form. They put down solicitors that they're used to cooperating with. Some don't even give the full list, give a limited list of those who they're used to dealing with. That's not fair because the parents then are not getting access or immediate access in that stressful period to the information for advisors.
Independent legal advice.
Exactly. Qualified independent legal advice. There are solicitors out there that are specialists in allegations of harmful traditional practices. But yet, because the local authorities are not being frank and open and preparing a proper list, people in our community are not getting access to solicitors that understand their culture, understand their dialects, understand the circumstances around such allegations in order to best represent them. So that is quite a concern. The other thing is How do you, when you're in a social worker's office, it's telling you the sooner you sign this, the sooner you get your children back. How do you then access the internet quickly to check for solicitors in your area or solicitors that you feel come recommended with quality marks? Because you need someone that has a legal aid contract that can give you funding that is going to understand and be able to take on your case. But appreciating all of that in such a short time is often very difficult for parents who are already traumatized, A, at the allegation, or B, at the fact that this is happening to them.
Let us take a look at the child that is already in care.
Yes.
I mean, with reference to the video you were talking about,
Yes.
one would think is unconscionable for the parent to actually be part of the child that is already placed in care without the permission of the carer for the child to relocate to the parent's place.
Well, you think about it. If a child at that age, and I understand this child was about 10 or 11.
Of course, something must have led
to the child
being
taken
into care.
correct. So we cannot overlook the fact that there are many, let me say, unstable people out there that do abuse their children, and they do need to be stopped, and the children do need to be protected. But there are many innocent people out there where, due to cultural misunderstanding at times, there is allegations that are made that are not proven. So where you have a child that has been taken for whatever reason and placed in foster care, and if that child feels that that care position or that placement is not working, they don't want to be there and keeps running away, which is what I understand was the position in this situation, then what should happen is the parents' solicitors should be trying to make an application to court to vary whatever order is in place, putting that child there.
A kind of a judicial review.
No, kind of like a review or a variation of the order that's in place. But the problem is...
Would it be to the court or to
It'll
the
be to
social
the
service,
court.
to the council social
It would
service?
be to the court.
What about initial
Because
discussion and meeting?
okay, initial discussions and meetings. What we have in these situations is everybody wants to act in the best interests of the child, and that's what we're obligated to do. But the judges set a 26-week deadline for case to go from start to finish. They want cases to be done and dealt with within 26 weeks if proceedings have started. So it's a finite timeline. Social circles are already under pressure, trying to do investigations, trying to look for reports, experts trying to be in place, statements trying to be done. And the problem is, if during that time a child's in a placement that's not working, they are supposed to have been allocated a guardian that looks out for the interests of that child. So that's not a lawyer, that's an adult that looks at the views and wishes of that child within that case setting and puts them forward. So representations should have been made by the parent solicitors to the guardian, probably and possibly an application of variation to the court, because the child had been running away more than twice.
When you're looking for a solicitor to deal with your case, you don't just look for any solicitor, you look for the right solicitor. An expert who knows what he's doing can deal with your case the right way, achieving the best results. Hobaski Solicitors has more than 100 years of specialist experience serving the local community in immigration law, property law, human rights legislation, civil and criminal litigation, family law, employment law, Sharia law, business law, maritime and commercial law, providing professional legal services globally in Africa, Asia and Europe. Be assured we'll be able to deal with your case the absolute right way with results. So, contact us today by phone on 020 7739 7549 or go online at www.legalpal.com.
Tension in the house at the
What would
time.
you define? The law is not emotional.
Of course
There
not.
is
It's
a
black
case.
and white.
It's
There
black
are
and
rules
white.
and procedures that need to be followed.
Absolutely.
But when you've got a child of that nature in distress, being completely in distress, it might be best to call a child expert rather than the police into the
Absolutely,
picture.
yeah.
So that's really, in my opinion, from what I saw, what should have happened. The duty social worker for that area should have been called to make a decision. The child should have been allowed to calm down, whether it took 1 hour or 2 hours, to disseminate. But they were screaming, the child was climbing up on top of bunk beds, 7 officers in the room to drag the child down and out of the house. And any mother or parent or any human being seeing a child dragged out of the house in that way would not be comfortable, and the officers could not be comfortable. From what I understand and from what I see, and the way that even the RSPCA have animals treated, it was in a way kind of inhumane. I felt it was quite inhumane.
Let us look at viewers that may find themselves
in this situation.
In
So
such a situation where you
I
have
really don't want any family
placed
to
in
go
care.
through that again. It was so traumatic. So the one thing that you could do as a family member when you see such a situation, it really is to call the duty social worker. The duty social worker should try and take a view. The other thing you can do, and I know it sounds very dramatic, it is to call the borough inspector, because the borough inspector is responsible for the actions of the officers that are attending that particular scene. So it is a case of calling 101, then ask to be put through to the inspector for that area, outlining your complaint as to what is happening, whether it's unreasonable force, the fact that you would want the officers to be told to let the child calm down. There's no benefit in distressing a child that is already either vulnerable, upset, whether they have been the victim of abuse, whether they've been the victim of a bad placement. There is no point adding additional stress to that child. And the other thing is, as parents who may be in this situation, remain calm. As stressful and as trying as it may be, no matter what is going on, you must try to remain calm, because the last thing you want people to do is judge your reaction, especially if it's aggressive, if it's animated. We're human beings, don't get me wrong, but if you're seen to be loud, shouting and aggressive, it goes down, oh yes, and they were aggressive and abusive towards law enforcement officers. When you start to get labelled, they see you as uncooperative, they see you as not respecting authority, therefore they'll see that you're not possibly best placed to have your child back. And we do see this a lot, especially when parents are so upset because the allegation is false, or so upset because they feel it's personal, it's because a teacher didn't like them, or it's because of a health visitor that felt that they were not doing things, or it's because a social worker kept coming to their house unannounced, and they saw washing on the floor, then said that the children are living in an unsafe environment or whatever. You have to be seen as cooperative, because when you're seen as not cooperative, that's when the local authority tries to make much more forceful applications because you're not cooperating with them, and also and the judge is more likely to acquiesce to the application being made because you're seen as not being able to control yourself or acknowledge and respect people in authority. So it is very important, but the main thing is to get proper advice and specialist advice, because in order for you to be a solicitor that deals with family law, especially public law children, you should have years of experience that lead to you having a panel registration. And this could be with the Law Society on one of their specialist panels, or it could be with another society called Resolution. So if you're looking for a solicitor, you want to make sure that the solicitor is qualified and registered with one of these two professional bodies and has years of experience, because at times situations with cases can take a turn that mean that if an agreement is not made in the family court, an application may need to be made quickly to the High Court. For example, we have the situation where doctors may want to give a certain type of treatment to a child that's in foster care, but you, that is the parent, says, hold on a minute, I haven't relinquished parental authority, the child is only with you temporarily, you cannot change the medication. You cannot do that. Then, because it involves that element of medical care, the family court where the case is being heard may think, do you know what, this is a serious medical issue, let a High Court judge deal with it. An urgent application may then be made. And if you're with a solicitor that doesn't know how to amend your legal aid certificate or apply for a new one, instruct and prepare the response to such an application, then you're going to be on the back foot. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Just because, again, if you're in a weakened position because you're stressed, because you don't have papers, it doesn't mean that the wishes and feelings you have as a parent should be diminished. You have to have somebody that's able to represent you and make sure those are secured. The other thing is, again, if children are taken away, whether it's because of criminality, whether it's because you've not been honest at the beginning because you didn't have papers, you have to see if there's ways that you can apply to vary the orders when you're in a position to say, look, I've settled everything down now. I've got papers now, or I've finished my prison sentence now. I want to have my children back. I've never given up my parental authority. You've only had a foster or a care order that's lasted for a certain period of time, but my situation has changed, you know? And many people don't realize they can do that. They just leave the children in foster care. And unfortunately, the law has said, because of children and the fact that we have to act in their best interest, it's important that we put them in settled positions. So you cannot leave your child in foster care and think, I'll come back when I'm ready. Because people in the back, you know, making decisions, social workers, will think, well, should we adopt this? Should we place this child up for adoption now? So we find that many people that are in unstable positions, that are not able to alter and stabilize their situation in order to apply for the care order to be varied or dismissed, are leaving it too late and the children are being adopted.
Well, look, what are the other options available to parents whose child or children are placed in care? Say, for instance, varied options such as the child spending time or days away with the parents. Say, for instance, in such situation where you have raised,
Now,
could the
it's
parents
difficult.
not have taken it up with the social
Again,
authorities? Say, can we vary these?
You know, the
things?
problem that we
allow the
have-
child to spend some time.
And
with
this is
parents?
where I do get a bit frustrated, because it does come down to the experience of the social worker. And if the social worker and the local authority are prepared to work with the family. So if the social worker, you sit down at times and you think, hold on a minute, why are they prepared to work with parents that are drug addicts, prostitutes, and those children are still with the parents, and the social workers are working with the parents? But where somebody doesn't have papers, maybe accused of chastising the child has been taken away. Why is the social services not working with that family to let the child stay and maybe send a person on a parenting course, an assessment, evaluation? And it does come down to, I would say, subjective understanding by the social worker of the family situation and the approach by the local authority. So you could have a mental ill health, have a child, and then the social worker comes and say, but you're not capable of looking after this child. Or you could have that situation and another social worker say, oh, okay, I'm going to work with you, send you on a parenting course so we don't have to take this child. So it's very important that if you, the mentally ill person or the person that is at risk of having your child taken from you, gets the representation to help you and also looks at the best interest of that child. That's where it's very important that the work between you, your representative, and the social worker comes to play. So you can try to make sure that if they want to do an assessment, that the care or the child is placed with somebody you know. At times, placements can be made within the family. Your auntie, your sister, or your brother may be better placed to look after the child for some time. So there are other alternatives, but again, please try and get the specialist advice. And people should also remember, please, that private contacts and where parents break down, those applications are not always subject to getting legal aid. But if there's been domestic violence and your ex-partner is applying for contact with a child, if it's been within the last 24 months and you've got evidence of it, you may be entitled to get legal aid to support you protecting yourself and the child from the perpetrator.
So if you find yourself or your child or your children being subject to possible being taken into care, you do need the advice of a qualified solicitor before you put your signature to any paper. It's your right to seek legal advice, and you are even entitled to legal. It's not a matter of you being having papers stay or and do not get intimidated. Do not be intimidated by any public authority. All you need to do is be calm, but be firm on your rights as the parents of the child in question. All right. If you need further information or you need more, you've got questions, just get in touch with us on the program or get in touch with Jennifer Basaki on the phone line that's on the screen. Most importantly, stay out of trouble
Regardless residence status abroad, living outside the shores of one's homeland can really be challenging and sometimes very difficult. Let's be sincere, to keep pace with happenings from the host country abroad can really be difficult. Here on Dialogue in Diaspora, we give you every information, every news, every current issue you need to know on happenings outside the UK. Dialogue in Diaspora is your link between the world and the United Kingdom. It's your window to African development. Here, live on Bentv.